Hi, Jeff.
We'll go on mute, Adam, and just wait for you to get going.
The redirect's working yet?
Yes, so we're working on Friday. It's a trailer card of Friday.
Okay.
So that's been working, and we can see it's working perfectly. We can see 20% of requests getting directly to the stages.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Jeff, can you just tell me that the view is okay, if it is, and if it isn't?
The camera's pointing very slightly towards the ceiling.
All right, okay.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Great, thanks.
Nice. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, thank you for the introduction. Good morning, welcome to Spring 47 Show and Tell. As a reminder for those, a summary for those of you who've never been to one, it's just a brief view of what the teams in Leeds and London across NHS.UK have been working on for the last 2 weeks. We start off in London and then we will swap over for, there'll be some seamless technology swaps halfway through, and we will get presentations from Leeds. And then there's a chance for both London and Leeds to ask questions at the end. Thank you all for coming. A comment from last week. If you are here, please bring all of yourself here. Don't sit and do emails and take phone calls and stuff, because that's really distracting to people speaking. So please just try and focus on this meeting. It's only an hour for you guys, and it's amazing. So thank you. We've done lots of work into doing this. So I'm going to start with, hi, I'm Adam, by the way. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Adam Madsen. I've been on this team for 3.5 weeks. I'm the delivery manager here. So I'm going to start with a very brief update of what we've been working on in London. Here's the agenda. It's changing as I talk, probably. We've only got an hour. We've done timings, and it looks like there's an hour and a half worth of talks. To talk quickly. Ace, thank you. London update, our team. This is our team, the wonderful team in London, ever growing. And Leeds, thank you. I was thinking I think Leeds on there. London update. Starting with some hiring news, we are still interviewing people, despite the fact that we're not entirely sure whether we've got a professional services business case, the SPC signed off, so we're trying to get a back-end developer in London. We've got 2 product managers, one of them is here today. Hello, Hayley. Hayley's over there, she's waiting on me. Coming in January, and another Trilly starting in December, who's going to be working with Matt, handing over the rest of the GP. We've got a content designer starting in January, and we're hopefully, and I think we've finally got to bring together WebOps and Tech Arc in London to help with the London development stuff. Ace, the dicker on the pointers just got a terrible timing. Right, I'm going to run around. Was guys just fail? Tech fail. Can Leeds still hear us? Can Leeds still hear us? Leeds, can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Right, we can't get this guy to work.
Take it wrong.
Try again. Okay. Hey. Joiners. Theo. Hello. We have a new joiner in London. You are right there. Front end deck. Excellent. Thank you. He's our only starter this fortnight. I'm going to have to move the slide. Let's do this properly. So, first proper talk about stuff that we've been working on for the last 2 weeks. London conditions. Spring goals. Hold that.
Does work?
No.
Right. Good. Hello, I'm Michael. I'm a product lead for conditions team. This week we had 7 goals. First of which was to get our content served from APIs rather than files. So we've done this, so we can consume the kind of content that will be presented on our website from an API which should connect to Wagtail when we have that up and running. At the moment, we don't have that up and running, so we're not consuming files. We're not consuming data from there. When we do, we'll be able to connect it seamlessly to our kind of content publishing bit. Second goal was to know what people are looking for and whether they find it. That was a kind of outcome-focused goal that was tied very closely to something that we mentioned last week, which was redirect traffic from choices pages. So last fortnight, I kind of mentioned that we were so close to getting this done, and this sprint we kind of we just got over the line. Unfortunately, when we first kind of set this up and running, it wasn't quite working. So it's only really since Friday that this has been working. So whilst we've done the kind of tech bit, the kind of understanding bit, which was our actual goal of knowing what people are looking for and whether they're finding it, we haven't quite done because we haven't yet got enough kind of responses from each viewing page. So that's not done, really. Prototype for a Blue Jab helper. This is my attempt to translate a very wordy goal into something a bit snappier. So we know that the kind of flat content that we have for explaining whether or not you're eligible to get a Blue Jab is quite complicated. So we wanted to try and see whether there were simple things that we could do that might make that a bit easier to use. We got some way with this. It was a time boxed exercise and we didn't finish it. So there's some stuff to pick up there if and when we have time to come back to it. Write 9 simple conditions and iterate the first 4. So I'm being harsh and kind of removing ambiguous things like partially done and so close. We've done part of this, which is to write the 9 extra simple conditions, and we've iterated some of the first 4, but not all of them. So I'm counting this as not done. Gather evidence for go to a GP condition. So we set up some surveys on the choices pages, and we've also been conducting telephone interviews, and we've done that and the analysis. And Tara's going to speak a little bit about that later. Version 1.0 of the roadmap. So we took the roadmap on the road, the lead, as well as talking about it with more people down here in London. For people in Leeds, I'm pointing at it on our wall down here. I know you've got a version up there on your wall. We kind of pulled out from the work that had been done over the kind of past few weeks, done key kind of milestones and gave them to Karen, who's working on the business case. So version 1.0 of the roadmap is done. It doesn't remain kind of fixed in time, and we'll kind of come back to it and iterate it as we go. I think this is the final one. Build a repository of design patterns. So we've been learning a lot of stuff about kind of design and how we communicate information about conditions. We now have a kind of hand over to Gemma and Tim.
Hello everybody, I'm Gemma Holland. I'm a user researcher and I am leading on the simple conditions cluster. I'm just going to talk you through very briefly what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks. It is a snapshot, it's not very detailed, but it just gives you a flavour of what we've been finding through doing research. So, we had a lab day last week, and actually the week before last, we talked to 6 people. We were testing some content on flu and diarrhea. So that's a picture of us in the lab. And here is what the top of the flu page looks like, just for you so that you can see it. And diarrhea page. So, just to give you a flavour of what we found. We found overall that the prototypes were simple, clear, people found them easy to understand, the volume was generally okay. But there were some details that required a little more clarity. So things like the dosage of OTC over-the-counter medications, so that can be found in flu medications. There was a need for kind of clarity and concerns about potentially taking too much of over-the-counter medication. So that offers a good opportunity for us to working alongside the medicine team to really unpick that and understand it. There was also another example was how to treat the different symptoms of the condition. So as part of flu, how you treat the different elements of flu. So I think the overarching thing was that the prototype works, but there are some details that may fall again. Users are drawn to the kind of information which is when to see a GP, and whilst people have made their own judgments about when's the right time to seek help, they really welcome actually having a bit of clarity around when is actually the right time to seek help. Something else we found was that the diarrhea page worked much better from a findability perspective. And that's despite the fact that you won't have been able to see it here, the diarrhea page there's much more information there. If we just flip back, what we found is that having these sort of anchor links at the top meant that people were using those and found it then much easier to get to the information that they wanted to do. So, for example, we talked to somebody who had had, whose child had had diarrhea, and he was easily able to find information related to diarrhea. And just that was the blue page, so it's slightly different. We also talked people about trying to understand what they understood of the different health services that were available to them. And we found that pharmacists are really a valued kind of primary care option. People talked about the relationships that they had with their pharmacists and how they go to their pharmacists to get some general advice, but they were often the first port of call. But we found that there was a great deal of confusion about all the other services. Something we heard time and time again was that people didn't know what NHS 111 is, and so we kind of put people to 111 on as part of the protocol. People were questioning and saying that I don't know what this is. It was also true of we talked about the kind of the different services, so things like urgent care centres, centres, trying to understand what people they were, and there was a great deal of confusion about what they would offer them. We talked about what happens when people make. Sorry, I will get a bit louder. We talked about what happens when people make the decision to go to a GP. And there's a real kind of there seemed to be a sort of reluctance to overburden the GP. So there was it was a pragmatic decision to go to a GP. It's weighing up, how easy is it going to be for me to get an appointment versus will I waste the GP's time versus is this actually going to help me? And actually when it came to physically making the appointment, we found that people take a great deal of comfort from actually speaking to somebody and feeling sure that they will do the right thing. It was just we people about making appointments online, and whilst many people had that option available to them, people felt much more reassured by actually speaking to them, even though quite often they would be the painful. So that's a really quick overview of what we learned. There's much more detail, so please do come and talk to us if there's specific questions you have. So in terms of what's next, I'm at the moment doing interviews with GPs and pharmacists to understand their perspective on these simple conditions and how they manage them. So that's it from me. I'm handing over to Henrik.
Hello, I'm Henrik. I'm a content designer on the project. And I'm going to talk a bit about the content work we've done in the last sprint. This is a reminder by simple conditions, we mean conditions where the first port of call is to treat yourself at home. And then if that doesn't work, go and see a pharmacist maybe, or see a GP. So self-care is the first thing. We've written all the user needs for the 21 conditions that fit in that cluster. And our clinician, Rishi, has looked over them, so they need iteration. And as we were writing them and discussing them in our crit sessions, where we print things out and put them on the wall, and everybody can say what they think about them, several things came up, and I've picked 3 to talk to you about. One is about the content and design patterns. Tim is going to talk about design patterns later, I think. No, he isn't. Okay, so by patterns, we mean things like this. So we've got boxes on the page that draw people's attention to when they need to go to the GP. And we have got several variations of these boxes. So see a GP if, take your baby or toddler to the GP if, talk to the nurse if. So we need to firm these up, and because we don't want to end up with 20 different variations of them, and sort of design for the most common scenarios first. The same goes for our emergency boxes. We've got different shades of red and different different calls to action. So go to the GP or A&E urgently, or call 999, or go to A&E if. So we need to test if people understand what the differences are, if we're being too subtle, and firm up these patterns. Another one is about going to the pharmacy. So as we're writing all these pages, every writer in the team sort of shows different ways of getting people to get help from a pharmacist. So we've got treating flu with medicine, how a pharmacist can help you with diarrhea. So we need to look for consistency and see what works best. Same goes for the links that then link off to the pharmacy tool that the team in Leeds is working on. Right, the next thing is about content hierarchy. So what sits where on our pages? We've basically got 3 main blocks of content. They're about symptoms, treatment, and prevention. But we haven't ordered every page in the same way. The reason being that the user needs were written from studies we ran on choices. So we got feedback from people who came to the flu and diarrhea page, for example, on choices, and they told us why they were coming there and what their problems were. So we analyzed the feedback, and the pages are ordered by how many people, for example, told us that they are interested in treating their diarrhea. They're not interested in the symptoms so much, because most people, or maybe I should talk about diarrhea. Let's talk about flu. So I'll show you what I mean. So, diarrhea, so treating was the most important thing that people wanted to know. So that's where we started. Then we go to GP. Then we go to lots of people wanted to know about their babies and children, and how long it lasts. And then quite far down, we've got the symptom stuff, because it wasn't that important, and what causes diarrhea and how to prevent it. With sprains and strains, it was different, because people were unsure if they had a sprain or a strain, or if the leg, for example, was broken. So the first thing they wanted to know, what is this pain I've got? And then how to treat it, and what to do if it's a severe thing, so broken up, for example. How do I get this? That's it. Yeah. Okay. So we need to do two things. We need to see if people care whether we have a set order, because very likely people just come here, look at one page and leave again, so they probably maybe don't care. But we also have to think of the consequences if we have an individual order on each page. And for example, how do we keep them updated? Do we need to constantly look at the feedback we're getting from users to make sure the order is still up to date? And the last thing I want to talk about is causes. We come across this a lot. People want to know about causes. One very important thing is they want to know that because they want to prevent getting whatever it is they have again, for prevention. But another thing is about conditions that can cause stomachache, for example. And what we've done at the moment, we've done a reveal thing that you click and there's this list of conditions with links to other pages. This isn't really very useful. So we need to get to the bottom of why do people want to know this? Is it about reassurance? Is it about getting more information? And then we need to design to a new way of approaching this problem that actually fulfills the user needs. So we're really not sure about what the user needs are around this. And that's it. Thank you.
I'm not Tim. I'm Danny. I'm a designer on NHS.UK. I'm standing in for Tim, who was going to talk about risk, design standards, and work in the lead team last week. One of our sprint goals, I think Michael mentioned, was you start to really collect together a lot of design patterns that we've been working on. So this includes things like just sort of better documenting our grid system, our fluid grid system that runs across all of our different pages. Last week we also went up to speak to Leeds and spent the day with the team in Leeds, and the kind of aim of the day was to kind of better understand the connections between symptoms and conditions, and a lot of the sort of work we've been doing on simple conditions, and where that then connects with the work that the team in Leeds doing, so GP registration, connected services, and really to kind of get a bit of a wider view on how everything fits together. So we did a couple of mapping exercises, which look a bit like this. So really, we were kind of trying to kind of put everyone together. It was just to really kind of broadly look at the wider context of work, the landscape that our services, the NHS services exist in now, where we think they might be in 5 years' time, and where we think they might be in 10 years' time. And in our case, we used the simple conditions pages as context. I think we used flu, diarrhea, the ones tested. And we just tried to map out where within those pages they kind of connected into things like pharmacies, EPs, emergency services, urgent care, what that kind of looks like now and how that works now. What we think might be happening in sort of 5 years' time, 10 years' time. It's all quite sort of speculative, but it just really helps kind of get a much broader picture of what's going on. So, here's an example of the kind of things we came up with. So now I'm here for work, so I'm dropped down with diarrhea, I'm at work, where can I go to get the drugs I need? 5 years, what's BP? It's health centres, everything's virtual, who knows? And then 10 years, bring drugs at home. So it's really, like I said, just to help us get a sort of real wider context services that we're designing. innovation, different solutions that we haven't really thought of. It's not just about kind of rewriting existing content, it's about kind of creating services or sort of connecting services that sort of really help people get the care that they need when they need it. This will be my bit, my actual bit. So we also went up and a few of us pitched ideas for Fire Break last week. Oh no, not last week, a few weeks ago. So I think there's a couple of projects on the go. We worked to pitch in a very violently brown and gold room. So I know that Michael's managed to assemble a team to do sort of few-day investigation, prototyping into a solution to kind of making timesheets a little bit less painful.
Getting rid of them.
Getting rid of them, sorry. And I think myself and Anna and Kim are going to be running a workshop on how we can kind of sort of find and potentially create better medical images for NHS.UK. So we've now got a workshop scheduled and we've got about 20 contributors to that. So it was a really successful day. I think there's other things going on as well. But now, Matt.
Right, I'm Matt. I'm the designer and registered GP. And keep this quite. Right. So Sprint 47, we have 3 sprint goals. Get user needs back into the master spreadsheet after finding and numbering. Get MVP of the register with the GP process. Louder. Get a prototype of email which gets sent to the practice. On those, we've managed the second 2. Get the MVP done. Get a prototype of the email which gets sent to the practice. I was going to do a live demo of the prototype. It's 10:30. I'm not going to do a live demo of the prototype. What I'm going to do is stand here. Anyone who wants to look at the MVP of this prototype, take a photo of this or write it down. I'm going to stand here in silence until everyone gets really uncomfortable.
Nice work, Matt.
Yeah. Everyone's feeling uncomfortable here. So basically, I was going to run you through it, but that's the URL. It's locked down with a password and a username, but there's an email to the team link at the top. So by all means, click through it, give us some feedback. Like that would be great. And again, we've iterated already. This is actually a journey map for version 2 of the MVP. So taken out a couple of times for people getting through it, but we've also critted it within the team. We've now got a slightly different journey flow up here. So we're starting to iterate already. So again, any feedback, get it in quick. Thanks, that's it, that's me, that's fine.
I'm Tara. I'm a user researcher and I'm working on data DC. So last show and tell, Kim introduced the conditions within the data DC. So there's a long list of 39 conditions which typically would require you to seek some medical help. And Kim also talked through the process that we went through to identify 7 kind of conditions that we were going to focus on. So 7 which typifies the opportunities and themes that we see in this kind of longer list. So themes such as recurrence, that you might have a number of recurrences of one of these conditions. The fact that a lot of these conditions require some kind of treatment or medication, it might require kind of examination or test or diagnosis. So we picked the 7 conditions. This is kind of really a cluster that we're counting as kind of one condition, one kind of group. And with actually in there as well, we've got the opportunity to talk to a kind of different demographic, the kind of patients that we've been speaking to so far. Okay, I'm going to suggest a bit more.
You could move closer as well.
Yeah, you're all very far away. Okay. So this last sprint, Jen and I have been doing phone interviews with patients who have, systemic conditions or experience. And the phone interviews are very much an opportunity to really get a sense of the end-to-end journey from the onset of symptoms through to treatment, hopefully resolution. So we've not been showing them any prototypes or any designs. We've been very, very much focusing on their actual experience. So we've been speaking to people who have either had very, very recent episodes of the conditions that we're looking at, or who are currently experiencing the condition right now, and trying to get that real granular detail of what that has been like for them. So we've been asking them to describe their symptoms and really kind of listen to the language that they're using, so that we can kind of use that to feed into kind of content design. We've been asking them to kind of talk about, what actually motivated them to get help, and the decision process that they went through in terms of the kind of help that they saw, their expectations and their experience of treatment. So it's been really, really interesting, and because we've taken that sort of big picture view, we've got lots of feedback around sort of the intersection with other kind of services and products. So we've got really useful feedback around the experience of booking an appointment with the GP. We've got really useful feedback around the decision to go and use other health services. And we've got feedback around the medications that some of our patients have been taking as treatment for their conditions. Okay, so I actually finished the last interview at lunchtime yesterday. So this is where I am with analysis. There's quite a lot, and I have more to do. So I don't have findings per se, but I do have some sort of things that seem to be coming out of the data that I thought were worth sharing with you. So one of the things that I think feels quite clear is that there's a real difference in the journey between patients who experience a condition for the very first time, so they've never ever had UTI before, versus those who've had repeated recurrences of the condition. So when you're experiencing condition for the first time, there's a really clear trajectory from the onset of your symptoms to, I better do something about this, getting help and treatment. And that trajectory is kind of very linear, and it's quite sort of compact as well. It happens in a relatively short amount of time. Whereas the patients that we've spoken to who've had repeated recurrences, there's a much more convoluted process that goes on. So I've just got a quote from one of the participants that we spoke to in the study. So this is somebody who has repeated recurrences of both kind of UTIs and thrush, and she's been experiencing them since her mid-teens, and she's now in her late 20s. And she said, I would go to the GP when I was a bit younger and used to it all, but now I'm just getting used to it. She was very much relying on sort of having to manage symptoms, having to manage her condition. So she was actually experiencing UTIs on a monthly basis. So it's really, really frequent, but very much in this position of some apathy, I think, and inertia and managing stuff. And we saw that with some other people who also had repeated recurrences. Okay, this is not something new, but we heard really clearly from the patients that we spoke to, the dizziness of GP surgery is a real barrier to seeking help. But again, that's kind of exacerbated when it's somebody who's had their condition for a while, it's come up again, they think they know what to do, so they won't take the extra step to seek help. So this user that we spoke to, he said, when you start to have the courage to talk about a condition like acne, and they ask if it's maybe you're angry and frustrated. So again, he's suffering from acne since his late teens, he's in his 30s now, finally thought that he ought to do something about it again, and felt quite sort of put off by the experience that he had, even though he recognised it's not the receptionist of something like that. Alright. And then we did see, and this was kind of different to what we saw when Jen was speaking earlier about the research for physical conditions. We actually had some different feedback around kind of other services. So we did hear that patients are making use of other services like water screening and something. But interestingly, the nature of the conditions that we were looking at conditions like thrush and UTIs and discharge, bacterial vaginosis, people were very aware of intimate nature of these conditions and said quite clearly, I wouldn't go to a pharmacist about this. I don't want to be talking about this on the shop floor. But they had positive things to say about other services that they're accessing. So this patient we spoke to, who was just waiting for blood tests back to say whether she's had glandular fever. She said, well, the walk-in test would be her first point of call. So yeah, if the walk-in test say yes, it's just a virus. I'd rather that than wait a week for this to come. So I still have this part of post-it notes to pull out in terms of kind of the rest of the data. So these are kind of just things that are coming out right now, but we haven't done the full analysis. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And then next week, we're actually speaking to clinicians, so speaking to GPs, nurses, and doctors in both GP practices and sexual health clinics.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm the product lead for the medicine project, and that is something I use research. So I'm just gonna, reporting from Sprint 2, currently in Sprint 3, rather than give you a digest of how many pages we've turned out, we're going to talk about information packs, which are a crucial part of our work, and they're really giving us a great insight into what users want to know about a particular medicine. And these info packs are packs of research that we're putting together ourselves, and I will talk more about those. But the findings from those, along with the findings from our discovery lab sessions, we're feeding into the briefs that we give to UKMI, our pharmacy experts who are writing our content. And then the copy that we're getting back from UKMI is really tailored to the user. And just to give a quick example, what we're finding from these packs is that users are asking for explanations a lot of the time, like why can't I take this drug before bedtime, and how does this drug work? So we're going to UKMI and we're saying, can you just give us one line on why, quick explanation, and as I say, hopefully the copy that we've got now is sort of meeting those user needs. So Claire is going to talk about a particular example, our Buscopan information pack. And yeah, okay, thanks Claire.
So hi, my name is Claire. I'm a grad attorney and currently assisting the medical team for their uniform research. So as Caroline just briefly said, the info pack gives us very brief ideas about the user needs for every medicine that we're planning to deliver in our So in the beginning of the meta phase, we kind of categorize the medicines depending on their complexity and the amount of discovery work that would require us to untangle that complexity in our prototype. And we decided to do more of an in-depth discovery work. And if the medicine is relatively simpler than those medicines, then we decided to use this information as the major guideline to gauge how much of a discovery research we will need to put in to understand that medicine. However, we create this info pack for every medicine that are doing tackling instead of. There's three major methodologies of research. First, we look at the online survey responses, where we get specific questions and comments from the users of the NHS choices. And second, we look at the Heatwise, which is the online search term analytics tool, where it tells us what search terms that users are actually putting into the search for the medicines that they're interested in. And finally, we look at the commonly discussed topics on online health forums to understand what kind of questions that people are commonly asked, and they ask their other users of those medicines for their experience with that medicine. So the one example that I prepared for this show and tell today is the hyacinth butyl bromide, which is also known as so I'll refer to this medicine by its brand name Buscopan because it's a bit easier to say. But Buscopan is basically a medicine that is commonly used for stomach ache, and it is also available over the counter without prescription. So in the online survey, we saw that as the over-the-counter medicines, a lot of people who purchase Buscopan or are interested in Buscopan are self-diagnosing patients. And the variety of over-the-counter products for Buscopan was actually quite confusing for those people who are self-diagnosing. So we found that from the content, from the responses that we gathered from the survey, that people were not quite sure what dosage of Buscopan they should use or what types of Buscopans that are available in the counter they should go to buy. I mean, this is quite sensible from knowing that it is over the counter, but having this evidence is more assuring through our newly developed content. And Heatwise actually showed some interesting facts. So we found that Buscopan is actually just as more commonly used term for people who are searching for a hyacinth butyl bromide. Because when I actually ran Heatwise for by the Buscopan, we found that some of the search terms would not be covered if I was just searching for the hyacinth butyl bromide. So search terms that I pulled out from hyacinth butyl bromide show that there is another medicine that sounds very similar to this generic name, but that there's a completely different purpose. So that was the hyacinth hydrobromide. So that one is more for a palliative sickness medicine that is available by the consultants with the pharmacist. But a lot of people were confused with that similar drugs because it sounded very similar. So people were looking for that information, and I tried to find search term under hyacinth butyl bromide. But when I was searching for it when I was researching it by the brand name Buscopan, I found that a lot of people were actually looking for the information around the contraindication of the hyacinth butyl bromide, which is glaucoma. So if I were to just do the research by the generic name only, I probably wouldn't thought that people were curious about why glaucoma might be a contraindication to hyacinth butyl bromide. And the forum topics are quite helpful, especially if we're dealing with drugs that are available in both prescription and over the counter, because we found that search term research often creates the people's interest for a quick information when they're Googling about that medicine. But the forum is where people who are using the medicine for more long-term duration, and they look for other patient experience with that medicine, and they have specific questions around some facts that are not covered by commercial information websites. So for Buscopan, we found that, again, for long periods, what would be the side effects? And because it's stomachache over-the-counter medicine, those people who are taking Buscopan also take over-the-counter painkillers and monitor if there will be any interaction between these two medicines. So based on these findings, we know that we need to tailor our content to meet this user needs. So for example, we know that the medicine is commonly known by its brand name, so we need to use this more preeminently in our content so people can get their information even by searching by the brand name. And there's a great user interest in drug interactions, especially the painkiller. And the dosage and the formulation has to be clear in our content because people would be looking for the information without our content. And those people who self-diagnose themselves. And that's
Right, thank you very much. Very quick tech switch over, which hopefully is seamless. Just doing this.
Hello, can you hear us okay?
Yep.
You can hear us, great. Adam, are you guys ready? You can all hear us? Lovely stuff. No, wrong one. Si's going to use his xylophone later. Looking forward to that.
Guitar.
As a guitar, sorry. Yeah, so I'm Dominic Hamilton. I'm a delivery lead here in Leeds, working on connecting services. So just to give you a quick introduction, we're running slightly behind time, so we're going to save questions for the end. So any questions we'll take offline and just stay around and approach me or Daniel or Adam or anyone in the room. And we're also going to put the video on YouTube afterwards if you want to watch it back. So, just to recap over the goals, our goals for the last sprint, we were aiming to improve the capability of the app, and that involved various technical tasks, such as some API work and some ETL work, and also we improved some performance and logging issues, which we completed. The API and ETL work will probably go into the next sprint as part done. One of the other things we were doing, we were taking a lot of feedback that we'd had from previous research. So in the previous sprint, we went to York and we did some research in the GP practice, and we had lots of feedback from that. And also, Rishi, the clinician who might be there, gave us some feedback that we wanted to take out to do some more research. So this sprint, we actually created in-browser prototype that we took back out to research, and we took to Meanwood Practice, who welcomed us, and we did a pop-up lab at Meanwood Practice, and we've got now a backlog of iteration features that we want to do into the next sprint. So the other thing that we were aiming to do was to iterate the GP journey prototype. We didn't get around to this, and that's going to go into the next sprint. And we're also investigating what other service data is available for the pharmacy services. So I think Joe and some other people had some meetings with Richard Moore, and we've got some ideas for other data that we might be able to use for future iterations. And then we also, as Michael mentioned earlier, we had some various planning that went on and some alignment to the investment justification, and so we did some roadmap planning. So next sprint, we've got some firebreak activity we're gonna support, and we're going to carry on with the app capability improvements, and hopefully iterate the pharmacy connector and also the GP journey prototype. I should have mentioned in the hiring update, we haven't had anyone new starting this week. We've got Alex, who's a designer, who's going to start on Monday. And we're meeting some researchers for informal discussions, and also some early discussions with some devs. And then we think we've got a user researcher starting early Jan, hopefully. So on to Si's now going to talk about protection services.
I'm not interested.
Although I really want to see Joe Limbo underneath that.
Hello. So I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown about it being not necessarily about Pharmacy Finder, but how we sort of started to talk about it being a piece of work that we're doing that connects people's services. Won't take too long, don't worry, we'll get back on time. This is something I slung together on the train back from London with Joe. We've been talking about some of the frustrations around when we explain to people we want to go to, and go into this sort of atomic detail of what services are. So we sort of like pulled this together quite quickly. So some people might have seen this already, but here's some examples of NHS services: pharmacies, walk-in centre, minor injury units. No means a definitive list. Limited time on the train, limited screen space, but let's get the ball rolling. And here's some examples of NHS services. So these are different, okay? So these are things like issuing prescriptions, dispensing prescribed medication, getting a flu jab, asthma checkups. You know, these are all the sort of things that you go to. These are usually what your needs are. People don't tend to say, I'm going to the pharmacy because they're just going to go to the pharmacy. They go to the pharmacy for a reason, don't they? you go to a pharmacy, you go to a doctor, you go to these things because you have something that's a bit deeper, something's not right with you or someone you care for. So here's an example of some like the services that a GP practice would provide. You can go see a general practitioner doctor, usually with an appointment, prescribe medicines, give a flu jab, check a sore throat. Here's a similar sort of map that we could do for a pharmacy. You see a trained pharmacy, and usually pharmacy is like a walk-in service, so there's some sort of stuff you can just go and you don't have to queue or wait for a long time. Dispensing prescribed medication, check a sore throat, give a flu jab. Wow, feels like there's some sort of synchronicity there with GPs. There you go. There you go. There's two things there. And all I've done there is look at two service providers, and we've pulled out two services. And what we're going to do in the next sprint is we're going to start looking at building up maps around services across service providers. So again, using my finest design skills, selecting circles, make a thick border and filling them in. We've just put some stuff together to kind of show you that services exist across all these different service providers, and there are a lot more. And if we were to do this, we kind of like find patterns. There you go, mapping. It's nowhere near as complex as Simon Wardley stuff, obviously. But what we'll find is that there's all sorts of stuff within this that will also have degrees of complexity and maturity as well. Walk-in centres, for example, might have a different remit to the general idea of what a GP surgery is, which creates these sort of rules around accessing those different services, which can be kind of fun. There you go. So at the moment we've got this and big word poo just for Hinrich down in London, because I know he's a big fan of the word poo. But at the moment we have find an open pharmacy near you. At the moment that is not a lie. We have formed the idea of what a pharmacy is by thinking about what a pharmacy can generally help with in a situation. What we haven't done though is broken it down to atomic services. What we'd ideally want to do is at some point in the future get to it where any of these things here could be just basically representing what those circles are on the previous slide. It could be that it could be several, it could be one, but what we're going to do is point people to that. Joe has blogged about our thoughts about this. So if you go to the transformation blog, the most recent blog here is Joe's, that's the official one. I wrote something about it on Medium over the past couple of weeks while we've been exploring this. There's been some interesting sort of side conversations around that, about other bits of government been looking at other things around that, and DWP particularly. And that's it. Cheers.
Hello, me next. I'm Joe, I'm a product manager working with the team here in Leeds. I'm not giving a sort of Leeds specific update today. It's more of a recap of the work we are collectively doing for the beta for March next year. And you might say, well, why are we talking about this? Because surely we all know what we're delivering. But we've had some feedback that like the show and tell gives us these really good snapshots of what we are doing right now, but it doesn't necessarily show progress towards an end goal. And we've also had conversations that indicate there's people both in the different beta teams and certainly in the wider NHS.UK programme team, in the live service team, not clear on what are you actually doing, what are you going to have by March, what is it you're aiming towards. So there's certain deliverables that we're committed to show some return on the investment that's been put into us that we have to get to by the end of March. And so myself and Matt and Michael and Nick, we sat down and we went through this list of deliverables and we tried to map it out visually, because it's much easier to look at a picture than it is to look through a big document. And we did that on paper and we shared it with some of the team. And then I tried to turn it into some slides, just to tell a little bit of a story about what we're trying to get to by the end of March next year. So we start with what we have now, and I don't know if in London how you can sort of see the slides, but we'll get these printed out and stuck up somewhere as well. But basically at the moment people can Google a symptom or a condition and they'll come to a choices page, and then either via clicking on a little banner at the bottom to go and view a new version, or as Michael was saying, a particular percent of traffic is being directed to some new pages, NHS.UK symptoms and conditions pages. And there are 10 of those at the moment. So by the end of March there will be 90 new symptoms and conditions pages. And as was mentioned by a few people in this show and tell, there's also the ability to go and find a nearby open pharmacy where that's relevant. So for some symptoms and conditions we will be advising people they can go to a pharmacy, and this connection may be on the screen. Or as Si was just saying, it may become more specific link. But for now, this is what we have. Now, for some people, the advice will not be going to see a pharmacy, it will be you need to go and see a GP. So we will also be creating some sort of journey that takes people through finding their GP and booking an appointment, possibly online with some third-party GP booking services. So this is not designed yet, and these boxes here are really just placeholders for something that will be designed. I'm not trying to define features in detail through this diagram. So something else we're doing, as Caroline was talking about, is 30 medicines pages. That will be part of our beta service, and will broaden the range of content that we are providing and allowing us to get more feedback and test a broader range of content. So we also know that not everybody is coming into this service by searching for a symptom or condition. Some people are searching directly for a service, and people are Googling GP surgeries. So they come into a Choices GP profile page at the moment, and we will have similar opt-in redirect onto a new GP landing page, as we're calling it at the moment. And the idea of that is that we will look at the needs of the people that are searching for GPs and build something that is more focused on those needs. And probably one of the things that we'll do is link through into this booking journey as well. We will test that. Similarly, oh no, not similarly, I've forgotten the order I added these in. So some people who are searching for a GP, and we know this from the surveys that we've done and the people we've spoken to, are doing it because they wish to go and register at that GP. And so this will be a great place to link through to the register with a GP start page and transaction that Matt J didn't show us, but put the link on the screen. So go and have a look at that prototype, and that will probably link up from something like this. We also know that people are Googling pharmacies, so we will add something in similar around that, so that people can view a pharmacy landing page, and that will meet the needs of the people that are searching for pharmacies online. There is an opportunity to explore how we link into other services. So there's the 111 online service that our friends are working on, and so one of the things we want to do is explore how we would integrate our service with that. So there will be some kind of link from symptoms and conditions pages to that service. We don't really know anything about what that will look like yet, but there will be some sort of link from our service through to the symptom checking 111 online service. And almost last of all, there will be some sort of homepage. Again, we don't know much about what this will look like, but there'll be some kind of NHS.UK homepage linked from the Choices homepage that ties some of this together. Additionally, there needs to be some way of actually publishing the content that goes here. So we're working on publishing systems, and Michael talked about a little bit about Wagtail. Dom and Marco Tiom are doing work on that. That will publish it here. Medicines will also have the ability to publish content, but they're doing something slightly different. But yeah, we will have publishing systems. So that is a picture of what we are collectively trying to get to by the end of March. Hopefully it's clear. We'll get this printed out. The other thing I just wanted to quickly add, just before I run out of time, is who's doing which bits. So the homepage, the publishing systems, the 90 symptoms and conditions, and the relevant or the related link to 111 Online are all being worked on by the conditions team in London. So if you've got questions about that, talk to anyone in that team, or if you're not sure who it is, talk to Michael Cornford specifically about those bits. Talk to Caroline about the medicines pages that are being worked on. Talk to either Matt Harrington or Michael Cornford about the register with a GP service. And in Leeds, we are working on the Find a Pharmacy journey, the GP booking journey, and these pharmacy and GP landing pages. So hopefully a bit of a picture and a story about what we are actually aiming for March. But we'll get these stuck up so we can then talk about, I think the thing we need to talk about is probably just how certain bits that different teams are working on link together. Because as Nick showed in our show and tell, we don't want that kind of hot welded two products bolted together. We want a coherent product for our users. That is me. I think we are done. We're out of time.
Okay. We're just going to finish that. All right, we're finished. So thank you, Adam.